Welcome back to Stamps Old World UK. Today we are exploring a beautiful and historic classic from Great Britain that many collectors around the world recognize instantly. The stamp you are looking at is the famous Queen Victoria 1 shilling postage and revenue stamp, a design that represents the power, elegance, and global reach of the British Empire during the late 19th century. This stamp is more than just a small piece of printed paper. It is a window into a time when letters traveled across oceans by ship, when communication depended on postal networks, and when the portrait of Queen Victoria symbolized stability and authority across a vast empire. The design of this stamp immediately captures the attention of collectors. In the center, we see the profile portrait of Queen Victoria facing left in the classical style used on many British stamps of the era. The portrait is surrounded by detailed engraving that shows the high-quality craftsmanship of Victorian stamp printing. Around the edges of the stamp, we see a bold ornamental frame with the words Postage and Revenue clearly printed and the denomination 1 shilling displayed prominently. This dual inscription is important because it tells us that the stamp was valid for both postal use and fiscal or revenue purposes, which means it could be used not only to send mail, but also to pay certain government fees and taxes. This particular design belongs to the famous Jubilee series of Great Britain, issued in 1887 to celebrate the Golden Jubilee of Queen Victoria's reign. The Jubilee series introduced brighter colors and more decorative frames compared to earlier Victorian stamps, and many collectors consider them some of the most attractive classic British issues ever produced. The 1 shilling value was an important denomination because it covered heavier international mail and higher postal rates, which means it saw significant real-world use during the late Victorian period. When we examine a stamp like this closely, several details help determine its value in today's collector market. The first factor is condition. Collectors look carefully at the centering of the design within the perforations, the freshness of the colors, the sharpness of the perforation edges, and whether the stamp has any creases, tears, thinning, or stains. A well-centered stamp with bright color and intact perforations will always be more desirable than one that shows heavy wear or damage. Another important factor is whether the stamp is mint or used. A mint stamp means it still has its original gum on the back and was never used for postage. Used stamps typically show a cancellation mark applied by the post office when the stamp was used on a letter. Many Victorian stamps are found used because they were printed in large quantities and actually served their intended postal purpose. However, collectors still value clean, lightly cancelled examples that allow the design to remain clearly visible. In today's stamp market, the Queen Victoria 1 shilling postage and revenue stamp from the Jubilee series usually sells within a moderate but respectable price range depending on condition. A typical used example in average collector condition may sell for approximately 10 to 40 United States dollars. If the stamp is in very fine condition with excellent centering and a light cancel, it may reach $50 to $100. Mint examples with original gum can be more valuable, often ranging from around $100 to several $100s if the condition is exceptional. Rare varieties, unusual cancellations, or stamps graded by professional philatelic experts can sometimes sell for even higher amounts in specialized auctions. Collectors also pay attention to color varieties and plate differences that appear in certain printings of the Jubilee series. Subtle variations in ink shade or paper type can make one stamp more desirable than another. Expert collectors often use magnification tools, watermark detectors, and specialized stamp catalogs to study these details. This careful examination turns stamp collecting into a fascinating mixture of history, art appreciation, and detective work. One of the reasons stamps like this remain popular is that they represent a major period in world history. During Queen Victoria's reign, the British postal system expanded dramatically, connecting continents through reliable mail routes. Stamps carried letters between families, businesses, soldiers, and governments. Every used stamp like this may once have traveled on an envelope that crossed oceans, passed through busy Victorian post offices, and carried personal messages that are now long forgotten. For beginners in philately, the 1 shilling Jubilee stamp is an excellent entry point into classic British collecting. It is historically important, visually striking, and still accessible in price compared with rarer Victorian issues. Many collectors start by obtaining a well-preserved used copy and then later search for higher-grade examples or mint versions to upgrade their collection. If you own a stamp like the one shown in this video, it is always a good idea to store it properly. Use stamp tongs instead of fingers to avoid oils and damage. Keep stamps in acid-free albums or stockbooks and store them in a cool and dry environment away from direct sunlight. Proper storage helps preserve both the beauty and the value of your collection for many years. Stamp collecting continues to be one of the most fascinating hobbies in the world because every stamp tells a story. Some stamps commemorate historic events, others celebrate famous people, and many, like this one, quietly reflect the everyday systems that connected people across the globe. The Queen Victoria 1 shilling postage and revenue stamp reminds us of the golden age of postal communication and the enduring artistry of classic stamp design.
Next up, the famous Queen Victoria 1 shilling postage and revenue stamp from the Jubilee series, issued during the late 19th century, when the British postal system was one of the most advanced communication networks in the world. This stamp represents not only postal history, but also the artistic engraving style and craftsmanship that defined the golden age of stamp production. At the center of this stamp, we see the iconic profile portrait of Queen Victoria. Her image was used on British stamps for more than 60 years, making her the longest appearing monarch in early philatelic history. The portrait is engraved in a classic cameo style, with fine lines that give the design depth and elegance. Surrounding the portrait is a detailed oval frame that carries the inscription "Postage and Revenue" at the top. This wording is very important because it means the stamp could be used for two official purposes. It was valid both for mailing letters and for paying certain government taxes or administrative fees. This dual purpose made these stamps practical and widely used across Britain and the British Empire. The color combination of this stamp is especially attractive. The center portrait is printed in a dark green shade, while the outer frame is printed in a rich red tone. This two-color printing technique was an important innovation during the Jubilee series of 1887. Earlier Victorian stamps were usually printed in only one color, but the Jubilee issues introduced more decorative styles with brighter and contrasting colors. Because of this artistic improvement, many collectors consider the Jubilee series to be among the most beautiful stamps ever issued by Great Britain. The denomination of 1 shilling was a higher postal value during the Victorian period. This means it was often used for heavier mail, international letters, or parcels that required more postage than ordinary domestic mail. Because it served an important role in postal operations, a large number of these stamps were used on real mail, which is why collectors today often find them with postal cancellation marks. These cancellations were applied by the post office to prevent the stamp from being reused. When collectors evaluate a stamp like this today, several key factors determine its market value. One of the most important factors is condition. A stamp with sharp perforations, bright color, and a clean surface without creases or damage will always attract higher interest from collectors. Centering is also very important. If the printed design is evenly positioned within the perforation margins, the stamp is considered well-centered and more desirable. Another major factor is whether the stamp is mint or used. A mint stamp has never been used for postage and still has its original gum on the back. Used stamps show a cancellation mark that indicates postal usage. Many collectors appreciate used examples because they carry evidence of real historical postal activity. However, mint examples are generally rarer and therefore often more valuable.
In today's international stamp collecting market, the value of the Queen Victoria 1 shilling postage and revenue stamp varies depending on its quality and preservation. A typical used example with average centering and a visible cancellation mark may sell for around 10 to 30 United States dollars. If the stamp is in very fine condition with strong color and a light, clear cancel, collectors may pay $40 to $80. Mint examples with original gum can reach values between $100 and $300, depending on condition. Particularly well-preserved examples or professionally graded stamps sometimes sell for even higher prices at specialized stamp auctions. Another interesting aspect that collectors study is the presence of watermark varieties and subtle printing differences. Stamps of this period were printed on paper that often contains a watermark, which is a faint pattern embedded in the paper during manufacturing. These watermarks help experts identify different printings and catalog numbers. Some varieties are more scarce than others, which can increase their value in the philatelic market. Stamps like this are also appreciated because they connect collectors to the everyday life of the 19th century. During the Victorian era, letters were the main method of long-distance communication. Families, merchants, government officials, and travelers all depended on the postal system. A stamp such as this might once have traveled across Europe, to India, to Africa, or to other parts of the British Empire. Each used stamp carries a silent story of the journey it once made on an envelope or document. For new collectors starting their journey in philately, the Jubilee series offers a wonderful opportunity to explore classic British stamps. They are historic, beautifully designed, and still accessible to collectors at many price levels. Building a small collection of Jubilee stamps can introduce beginners to important aspects of stamp collecting, such as perforation varieties, watermark identification, and condition grading. Proper preservation is very important if you own stamps like this. Always handle stamps with stamp tongs instead of fingers to prevent damage. Store them in high-quality stamp albums or stock books with protective strips. Keep the collection in a cool and dry place away from humidity and direct sunlight. Taking care of stamps properly ensures they remain in excellent condition for future generations of collectors. The Queen Victoria 1 shilling postage and revenue stamp remains one of the most recognizable and admired issues from the Victorian postal era. Its elegant portrait, its rich two-color design, and its historical significance make it a favorite among philatelists around the world. Even more than 100 years after it was first issued, it continues to connect collectors with the story of global communication during the height of the British Empire.
Next up, the famous New Zealand 3 Shillings postage and revenue stamp, a design that stands out in the world of philately because of its detailed illustration and its connection to the early 20th century postal system of New Zealand. This stamp is not only a collectible item, but also a miniature piece of art that reflects the culture, history, and development of the country during that time. At the top of the stamp, we clearly see the name New Zealand printed in bold lettering, proudly identifying the country that issued this beautiful design. The central illustration is what makes this stamp truly unique. Instead of a simple portrait, the design features a detailed historical scene, showing a group of people gathered around a table in what appears to be a moment of discussion or agreement. Scenes like this were often used to symbolize cooperation, governance, and the development of society in early New Zealand history. The artwork is carefully engraved, showing fine lines and detailed expressions that highlight the incredible craftsmanship used in classic stamp production. The denomination of this stamp is 3 shillings, which is shown clearly on both the left and right sides of the design, and also written in words at the bottom as 3 shillings. In the early 20th century, this was considered a relatively high postal value. Stamps of this denomination were commonly used for heavier mail, parcels, international postage, or official postal services that required higher rates. Because of this, the stamp played an important role in the functioning of the postal system during its time. Another important feature of this stamp is the inscription Postage and Revenue printed along the lower portion of the design.
Similar to many stamps issued by countries within the British Commonwealth, this wording indicates that the stamp could serve two different purposes. It could be used for sending mail through the postal service, but it could also be used to pay certain government fees or taxes. This dual purpose increased the practical value of the stamp and explains why many of these stamps were widely used in everyday administrative activities. The color of the stamp is a deep purple or violet shade, which adds to its elegance and makes the design stand out beautifully. The engraving work is extremely detailed, with decorative patterns along the borders and fine lines throughout the central illustration. When collectors examine stamps like this under magnification, they often admire the intricate line work that was created using traditional engraving plates. This level of detail is one of the reasons why classic stamps remain so admired among philatelists. When determining the value of a stamp like this in today's collector's market, several factors must be considered carefully. The first and most important factor is condition. Collectors look closely at the perforations along the edges of the stamp to ensure they are intact and not torn. They also examine the color quality, the centering of the design, and whether the stamp has any creases, thinning, stains, or other signs of damage. Another major factor is whether the stamp is mint or used. A mint example means the stamp still has its original gum on the back and has never been used for postage. A used example will usually have a postal cancellation mark that was applied by a post office to prevent reuse. In many cases, used stamps are more common because they were actually used in the postal system, while mint examples were often preserved by collectors or stored in sheets. In the current international stamp collecting market, the New Zealand 3 Shillings postage and revenue stamp generally holds a respectable collector value depending on its condition and rarity. A typical used example in average collector condition may sell for around 20 to 60 United States dollars. If the stamp is in very fine condition, with strong color, clear detail, and a light cancellation mark, collectors may pay between $70 and $150. Mint examples with original gum and excellent centering can sometimes reach values between $200 and $400, especially if they are professionally graded or auctioned through specialized philatelic sales. Collectors also pay attention to small variations that may appear in different printings of the stamp. These can include differences in paper type, watermark patterns, or slight variations in shade. Identifying these varieties can make stamp collecting even more exciting because certain variations may be much rarer than standard examples. Stamps like this one from New Zealand are especially fascinating because they combine history with art. The central scene tells a story about the people and development of the country, while the stamp itself reminds us of a time when international communication depended entirely on the postal service. Every letter that traveled across oceans and continents carried stamps like this, connecting families, businesses, and governments around the world. For collectors who enjoy building a worldwide stamp collection, New Zealand issues are often considered some of the most attractive and historically meaningful stamps of the British Commonwealth. They offer a wide range of themes, including exploration, agriculture, national heritage, and important historical moments. If you happen to own a stamp like the New Zealand 3 Shillings postage and revenue issue, it is important to store it properly so that it remains in good condition. Use stamp tongs when handling it and place it in a protective stamp album or stockbook with acid-free materials. Keeping stamps away from moisture, heat, and direct sunlight will help preserve their colors and paper quality for many years. Stamp collecting continues to grow as a fascinating hobby because each stamp offers a glimpse into a different place and time. Some stamps tell stories of kings and queens, others celebrate important events, and many, like this one, reflect the everyday systems that connected the world through communication. Thank you for joining Stamps Old World UK. On this channel, we explore classic stamps from around the world, uncover their history, and discuss their value in today's collector's market. If you enjoy learning about rare and historic stamps, make sure to continue watching Stamps Old World UK, where every stamp reveals another chapter in the amazing story of global postal history.